Welcome back to That's When I Knew the podcast, where real people have real conversations about the journey towards building a meaningful career. I'm your host, Robert Creighton.
And I'm your co-host, Zakia Kunadu.
On this week's episode, we're joined by Nicole Verduzco. Nicole has spent the last 5 years working in sales and marketing operations at a Bay Area printing and graphic company called SpeedPro East Bay. Now, at a time where we consider 2 years too long at any particular company, Nicole shows us what can happen when you're loyal to a company that actually cares about your career development. Nicole also shares her thoughts on women in sales and gives advice to women considering a career in sales. She touches on the benefits of working for a small family-owned company, mentorship, and much more. Now, before we get into the show, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, be sure to subscribe, rate the show, or leave your thoughts in the comments section. You can also watch, subscribe, and engage with the video version of this show on YouTube as well. Thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoy.
Welcome, Nicole. I'm Zakia.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
And you know me, we went to high school together.
Yes.
Appreciate you being on the show. Really, this is real people having real conversations about the journey towards building a meaningful career. And, we want to speak with some sales professionals and just get a background and on your story and what it's like. And yeah, so to kick things off, would you like to introduce yourself to our viewers and listeners out there?
Yeah, so I'm Nicole Verduzco Villanueva, but I go by Nicole Verduzco just because that's a very strong business name. I've had it for so long and I've built my career around it, so I just keep it that way. Okay. And so I work at SpeedPro East Bay. And what we do is we're basically helping with marketing and advertising, such as, signage, and just really helping the business with their visuals. Like right now I'm sitting in the shop right now and have this wall mural behind me. So we really create the design and the branding in offices and big and small businesses.
Got it. Okay, cool. And what exactly is your role at your company?
Yeah, so I do sales and marketing. I actually kind of do a little bit of everything, but that's my main focus, sales and marketing. Yeah.
All right.
And I've been doing it for about 5 years now. So
5 years? Okay.
Yeah.
That's
5
awesome.
years here.
5 years there. Okay. Well, that's actually a good segue. We like to start off the show by kind of getting a better understanding of yourself and your personal journey. I know you're from San Leandro. We went to high school together, but do you mind giving us just a brief history of where you grew up, how you grew up, and then also how your upbringing has affected your approach towards building a career?
Yeah. So I was born in Oakland and I was there until I was about 7. And then I moved to San Leandro and I lived there for basically my whole life until a few years ago. And now I live in Alameda. And so growing up, my mom, she worked grueling hours. She worked retail. And I had my dad in the picture, but he really didn't work very much at all. It was pretty much my mom just holding down the household all the time. And, we all watched her really kind of struggle with that. And so I think watching that happen is what's put me in a position of always wanting more and wanting to do better and wanting to make her proud. And so that, my kids don't have to struggle as hard or watch me, have to do those same things that she did. So I think that's impacted a lot of why I'm so, I guess you can say, hungry. I'm always hustling. And I think that's where the sales aspect comes in, because you see, you really want it. And so you have to have that motivation.
Nice. And so kind of growing up, did you have a dream job set in mind? I know sometimes sales might not be the first thought, especially for women, that's not typically a job that women go into, sort of say, with society. So just curious if you had, dream jobs growing up that you thought about growing up.
Yeah, so I actually had a ton of different ones that would always get shot down. It was from the silliest thing, I want to be a character at Disneyland, to I want to be a veterinarian or a chef. But one of the ones that really stuck with me, and this is similar to your story, when you were talking about communications and being on the news, and you mentioned that last week. And Yeah, and so that was definitely something that I really wanted to do after a while. I realized that I was always good at writing and journalism. I used to write short stories all the time. So that's when I was like, that's what I really wanted to do. And so the transition into sales kind of happened because I was looking for like a marketing position. And there's a lot of writing, PR, website, all that kind of stuff. So I was kind of able to turn something into something different.
Okay.
Yeah, I can definitely see how, journalism and then marketing could be there
Yeah.
aligned a bit.
I would say, I think when I was going to school for journalism, at one point I was kind of looking into marketing because it seemed like it meshed a little bit. But yeah, so that makes sense.
Yeah,
Nice.
exactly.
I'm curious. What were the type of careers that you were like exposed to growing up, though? Like either your parents or people within your community. Um, what were like the careers, the traditional careers that maybe were more expecting of you?
Yeah, I mean, there was really never any real big expectations, honestly. Like, I come from a family, like I said, my mom worked in retail, my dad worked in warehouses. And so, never really like a huge, I always had these really big dreams, I think, because I made my own expectations. For them, they just wanted to make sure that I was successful. And I think as I got older, I started seeing, in my sisters, they wanted to do more psychology. And that's why I originally started going to school for psychology because I was like, okay, they're doing it. I don't really know what else to do. Let me just go ahead and try this. Plus, I was always like the friend that you go to listen. And I was like, I'm a listener. I could be a psychologist and listen to people all day.
Well, the funny thing is, sales is a lot of psychology too.
Exactly. That's why I
Is
kept it
it?
as a minor. Yes, you definitely have
Hmm.
to know what makes people react, what makes them tick, how they're going to
Okay.
respond.
Interesting. Okay. So, should people who are getting into sales have some type of Psych 101 class that they should take or something?
I mean, it doesn't hurt. I think that you really should know how to like read people and their
Yeah.
language for sure, because that'll help you kind of seal a sale too if you start to like read how they're reacting.
Okay.
A big part of it.
What can be done to get more women into sales? I feel like
Yeah.
I think marketing. A lot of women are in marketing, but I'm not sure if it's the same for sales. Do you have thoughts on that? And yeah.
Yeah, no, I think I don't see a lot of women in sales. It's such a, that's one of the biggest issues I had coming into it was I lacked so much confidence because I was a young woman, a minority woman coming into a male white dominated industry. And so I think that really is just having that confidence and knowing that you can do it. Because if you look timid at all, they can sense that. And I really think it just speaks volumes on like how you can stand up and really be heard for yourself. I think that would be, women, we would see a lot more women in sales.
Okay. Yeah. Is that there was just more representation and then just more making it accessible and making it cool, I guess, for women to want to do that. I mean, but how did you gain that confidence? Like, because sales is not something what a lot of people don't realize is that sales is not for everyone. There's a
Mm.
low barrier to entry, so almost you can, so many people transition into sales from other types of careers, but the tough part is being successful and making it a long lasting career. So for you, how were you able to like, you know, gain that confidence in sales?
Yeah. So I started in retail. I've been working retail since I was like 15, 16 years old. And that kind of just transitioned into, and I worked all around women. And so it was all of us were women in sales. And I think that kind of was the transition of where I was able to feel more comfortable coming into now working with men. Because we were all women competing with each other trying to sell clothes, that's a big thing. Now I'm in the, getting thrown into selling, marketing and advertising to big firms. And so I think that is just, I think what you surround yourself with is a huge part of it. So I think if there is that transition of, I mean, it's, you hate to say that if they're around more women, then they'll be more comfortable. But I honestly feel like that is kind of a big part of it is getting that comfort level. And then you get the confidence to start being able to talk about things and really sell it.
Absolutely. And I'm actually going to put my 2 cents on this because I agree. I think that community and having that support is very, very, very important.
Yeah.
I will say though, if you don't have a supportive group that of people that look like you, at least try to find a company or find people that, regardless of their gender or ethnicity, that will support you. Um, because I just think that that support is important regardless.
I agree. So in sales, what we do here was we would do a lot of networking and going to mixers and things like that. And, go to those things, again, you see older white men, older white women. You don't see a lot of people our age, our, color. And so we joined the Oakland Latino Chamber. And so it was a complete shift because now I'm dealing with people that look like me. Now we can work together, and so having that really will boost your confidence. Is just joining these little groups or finding that, like you were saying, Robert, like that community of people is super important to have.
It sounds like these communities of support. There's a thin line of support from a community, but then also like mentorship. Is that something that you've had the luxury to have, or have you been in a position to mentor others? What's your just your views on mentorships in general?
Yeah, I think they're super important. And I'm very lucky to, where I work, it's a family business. And it's not my family business, but I just stumbled upon that it was their family business. And so it's a husband and a wife. And the wife is really business savvy. She has a job outside of here, she's a sales consultant. And so she's not here all the time, but when she is here, she has a lot to offer as far as like, the back end of running a business, how to run the books, how to grow the business. Just really important things like that. That's giving me a well-rounded experience. Not so much the sales part. I kind of had to I got thrown into everything sales for this part, but all other parts of the business, having that mentorship really will go a long way.
Yeah, I agree. I think, especially given that it's like, the wife that's kind of giving you all that background information, telling you how to run a business. I think that's super important to have those support networks and just even someone in the company itself that, is willing to help and teach you and help you grow. And something that I was looking at on your LinkedIn is that you've been with that company for quite some time. It looks like right after you graduated from Cal State East Bay, you've been working at
Yeah.
SpeedPro. So, and I'm just curious, it looks like you've kind of worked your way up. And sometimes I think when people are just coming out of college, they are quick to, jump a job or, they might get discouraged if they haven't moved up. And myself included, I'm very impatient. I feel like if I haven't moved up, I'm like, all right, what's the next company that's going to give me the higher position? But just
Yes.
with your experience with staying, being at the same company, it seems like there's a level of, stability, but also, growth. Just kind of wondering, what has contributed to your success to be able to continue to move up? Because right now it looks like you are the director of operations and partner. Congrats.
Yes, thank you, thank you. Yeah, no, I'm with you. I can be very impatient at times too. But I think that having that patience is super important. What happened in the beginning was I really just said yes to anything that they threw my way. Because when it came to like networking, 3 nights a week, I'm out, doing the grueling work, meeting people, making connections. I'm not getting paid extra for this time, but I'm like, yeah, I came in wide eyed to the position and I wanted to learn and take in as much as I could. And I think all of those little things add up. Anything they told me to do, if they told me to go start presenting to people and start selling stuff to a panel of people, I would get in there and do it. And I had no experience doing that. So I think really just taking those chances on yourself, and that's going to definitely be the way to kind of work your way up. And I mean, you may fail sometimes, but I think the fact that you actually took that leap in the first place will give them the confidence in you to know that, at least she tried it. It didn't work out, but she tried to do it. And so it was last year when they started talking about, making me a partner in the company just because they saw so much dedication into the company and loyalty.
That's awesome. I mean, you are like all the companies that are all the HR folks listening to this are like, why can't our employees be like Nicole? Like,
Right.
why can't they be like Nicole? Like in tech, a lot of people bounce around.
Yeah.
And even I've had that probably talked about it on the first episode. Like there's a thin line between having drive and being impatient.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
I have a question for you because okay, these promotions that you've gotten over the years, have you asked for these promotions? Have you asked for this increase in responsibility, or have they kind of just like, hey, we want to promote you? Because I think a
Yeah.
lot of young people like that they do get they ask for positions and they're not given to them, and then others will just keep working and working and working and never ask, and also be in
Yeah.
the same position. So
Yeah.
how did you maneuver that?
So I never asked. I'm such a modest,
Oh.
and I'm so shy and humble. Like I'm the kind of person where it's like if you give me a promotion, I'm gonna sit there and be like, no, you don't have to. Like don't worry about it. That's just my kind of mentality. Even when they give me a pay raise, I'm like, oh wow, I expect way less. So no, I was really just super patient with the whole process, and I never asked. I just worked and was like, this is gonna pay off in the end, and it has so far.
Wow, that's awesome.
Interesting. I guess something I wanted to kind of touch on is you said that you haven't asked and you kind of were modest, like even if there was a pay raise, you were a little hesitant to take it. Is that just you felt like you were just doing your job? Like you felt like maybe I wasn't going above and beyond. I'm just doing what is asked of me. I don't think that I'm portraying myself to be a superstar because I know sometimes people can feel like I don't know if this is necessarily imposter syndrome or whatever the case may be, but sometimes people are like, "Oh, I'm just doing my job," but then people recognize that because working in HR, I realize some people don't do their job, and so it's interesting to hear you say that, like, no, I didn't ask for that, and no, like with the raises. So, just curious as to where that comes from. Do you just think that you're doing your job as is? You don't think you're
Yeah,
given
yeah.
110%.
No, I definitely agree with that. I think that I would say that I always felt like I was just doing my job. And you get accolades and they're like, "Oh, you're doing so great. Good job, this and that. Oh, she's the best." They tell other people, "Yeah, you guys, if you want to have her help you on the side, she can do it." And I've always been like, "Am I really that good?" And you start to question yourself, and it is that whole imposter
Right.
syndrome that you were saying. It's like, are you really are you really that good? And I think that that's why I always kind of questioned myself and sat back and was like, am I just doing my job? Do I deserve the extra?
Well, you deserve it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
obviously she's killing it, crushing it.
Thank you.
So are you ultimately where you want to like? I mean, I think what's I wanted to touch on this earlier. I think it's really cool that you have a mentor that's an entrepreneur because
Yeah.
they're able to teach you much more. I mean, it's one thing to have a mentor who's done sales for 15 years, but it's another thing to have a mentor that's done a bunch of other things. So my
Mm-hmm.
question for you is like, do you see yourself being doing more, or do you see yourself being a lifelong salesperson through and through?
No, I definitely think the road does not stop here. I feel like there's so much more for me to learn, for me to get into. And I think as I'm coming upon 30 next year, I really started thinking about this a lot more, which is crazy. And I've had conversations with them openly like, do I want to be here for the rest of my life? They wanted me to take over the business, which is huge. And that's like an honor. I even want them to want that for me. I don't know. Like I've done sales for so long and I do love sales, but I also kind of like doing the marketing portion of it more combined with that. And I think that there's just, like I said, there's so much more left to do and conquer.
Are
I
you
would say
thinking
that's
about? Oh, sorry. Go
uh,
ahead, Rob.
no. Go ahead. Go ahead,
I
Zakia.
was
Go
going to
ahead.
say, you thinking about starting your own company, your own business?
I, it's funny you say that because we were just talking about that like 2 hours ago. Me and him were talking about what would be my next step, and he had mentioned me starting my own business. If I did, it would be probably something in like sales and marketing because I've helped other companies or small businesses on the side of working from here just because they needed my help. And so that was kind of like a little side hustle I was doing was I would help them with their business. So I'm like, maybe I could turn that into my own business.
Yeah.
Absolutely, like a
It's
consultancy or
not
something.
Yeah, definitely.
exactly. Yeah,
Multiple
for sure.
streams of income.
Right?
It
That's the
doesn't
way to do
hurt.
it.
It doesn't hurt. I
Yes.
have a question for you. So, you are in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley. You got
Mm-hmm.
Apple, Facebook, all these huge companies, and yet, and you have the skills and experience to work in any company. What is it about working for a family-owned private company that you love?
There's a lot of benefits that you get from working for a small company. Like you can go directly to the owner and tell them like how you feel or like to change in the workplace. You don't like something, you can tell them directly. There's no politics behind it that you have in a bigger company. If I want to leave for the day, I can just be like, "Hey, I'm going to go or I'm going to go run this errand. I'm going to leave early this day." So there's a lot more flexibility in that. And also they've become kind of like a family over the years. So it's really beneficial, I think, because when you're in a corporate company, then you have to deal with, the different ladders of people, to get through. And I think that's a lot more difficult. I haven't worked in a corporate environment, so I don't know for sure, but I've heard things, and that's what.
Yeah.
I would say your analysis is pretty spot on. But I work for a small startup. So I'm in corporate America, but my company that I work for is like 45, 50 employees. So it is flexible. I would say they're more flexible compared to working for like a huge company.
Yeah.
But definitely, I can only imagine. Actually, I've worked for a private local solar company as well. So I definitely get you there.
Yeah, I think you touch on a few things because I know when I first graduated from college, I had no idea what like a mid-size, what a startup was, a family-owned, private. There's so many different types of companies, and it really just depends because some people feel like a startup environment is not for them, right? Because it's really small and you're given a lot more responsibilities. Whereas working at a larger company, you have maybe just one role that you're sticking to, and then with like a family owned company, there's just a different dynamic there. So when you first graduated college and you were first looking for jobs, were you kind of searching for those different areas, like what type of company you'd go to, and you just landed on this opportunity? Like what was that like for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I definitely kind of just stumbled upon this job. So,
Okay.
like I said, I graduated with communications. I really wanted to get into journalism. I did the radio show, did news packages. I was really into that. But then I realized that I had no experience outside of school because I worked the whole entire time. And
Yeah.
so you need the experience to get the experience, and it's a whole like catch 22.
Right.
So I was like, that's when I started thinking about marketing. And so I kind of just hit the ground running with like what marketing jobs are out there. And I found this one, and they were in Alameda. So I was like, perfect. That's really local.
Yeah.
And I came in for the interview, and I think I was probably the most dullest person ever. Like I look at myself now and back to then, I don't know why they hired me, but we both had a good chance on each other because I left my job in retail, even though like no disrespect to retail, but I hated working in retail. It's the worst job I feel. So I
It's a
left.
tough job too.
It is, but I was really secure with that job. So I left that job.
Yeah.
They had just opened their doors, so we were both taking a chance on each other, and we luckily it all worked out because it could have blown up pretty bad.
Love at first sight.
Yeah,
Corporate version.
Right. Right.
No,
yeah,
that's cool. That's cool.
yeah. So it
I
works.
mean, part of the career journey though, like, is it's not always good, right? Like, there's dips and valleys, and I would say for you, you have an interesting story because you've been able to really work your way up at the same company. But with that being said, has there been any setbacks in your career so far that you thought were setbacks, but were potentially not? Maybe they made you stronger, or that setback set you up for something greater or bigger.
Um, I mean, I guess you could say that in the beginning, I was starting to feel like I was stagnant. And I was thinking, okay, maybe I should apply here, apply there, and get somewhere bigger. I did have those thoughts about maybe I do want to work in a corporate company. And so I'm not sure if I did actually start applying, but I think that whole mindset of a setback was really setting me up to be something better because who knows where I would be? I mean, I could be in a better place, but then again, I'm in a pretty good position right now. Like, I feel very fortunate that I have a job right now, considering the
Yeah.
pandemic, especially being
Yeah.
a small business. So I would say that's probably the one setback, was just thinking that I could do more. Being impatient was what it was.
Right. Well, that's good that you overcame that.
Yeah.
I agree.
Wish I
Yeah.
would have overcame that. This is just top of mind because I was listening to our last episode, and viewers, listeners, if you haven't checked out the first episode, check that out. But yeah, we talk about that, so it's just top of mind for us. So I want to take a step back, and we're going to talk about your early days again.
Okay.
But we're talking about this through the lens of where you are today. So
Okay.
when you think about your childhood and your early ages, are there signs or maybe foreshadowing events that when you look at your earlier self, like it all makes sense? Like, oh, I'm in sales, I'm in marketing, I'm such a driven person. And when I think back when I was at a much younger age, these were like the early signs of that. You know what I mean? Does that question am I making sense on that?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. No, it definitely makes sense.
It's a tough question to ask.
It's tough to think of on the spot, I would say. But I mean, well, when I was a kid, like I said, I had so many different dreams, but I've always been a very outgoing person. And my mom used to laugh because I would make friends wherever I went. And I feel like that kind of thing is what kind of, like, if I think back to it, I'm like, okay, I was kind of always meant to be in sales and be talking to people and be outgoing. Same with how I was like always interested in writing. And I think that that was kind of like foreshadowing to doing something bigger with that. No, I'm not like a big time bestseller book writer, but I can incorporate that into what I do. Um, and I mean, I think that's really, I think, then you get into college and you start to feel different things out. And I think that losing my way of trying to figure out if I wanted to do psychology, but really shifting over, is where it was kind of like, okay, this is what I'm meant to do.
It's when you had that aha moment in college once you shifted your major.
I think so. I would say that's when I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to be around people who are very like vocal. When I did psychology, it was just, you're around people who don't really like to talk, and they're kind of like socially awkward sometimes. Every class I took was like that. And as soon as I went into communications, it's like every class you can't get the people to be quiet because they're always talking. And so I think that's when I was like, okay, I'm around the right people now.
That's what's up. That's what's up.
Nice. I guess I want to know, like, if you could go back and speak to your younger self, like, what piece of advice would you give?
I would definitely say to utilize my relationships better from college. Like, I don't think I networked enough or really understood the value of that until I came, into real sales. And I had really good relationships with professors and lots of different people that I went to school with, and I never really leveraged on that. And I think that that was a big thing that I would go back and change. As well as just having more confidence. Like I said, coming into sales as a woman, very difficult. And I kind of made it through the tough part because I just like I wasn't gonna give up. But I think I had that confidence early on that would have made a big difference too.
Yeah, you touched on a good point. I think sometimes I find myself thinking about that. I think when I was getting ready to start my master's program, they were like, oh, references from professors and, these things. I'm like, I don't even keep in touch with those, like my professors from San Jose State, and it's something that I thought about where, wow, I should have continued those relationships, reached out, because I felt awkward sending them an email like, hey, I took your class in 2010 and I got a B in that class. Would you be willing to give me a reference? So I definitely think you touch on a good point about keeping those relationships, especially for our listeners who are, coming out of college or who are in college right now or coming in, graduating high school, is to really connect with people, build relationships, regardless, whether it's your teachers, professors, friends, or whoever you meet, even just from like jobs that you've worked at as a server. You never know how those people can impact you. So I think you touched on a really good point.
Yeah, just don't be shy or embarrassed. There's nothing embarrassing about asking for a little bit of a boost,
Yeah,
absolutely.
They may find it useful too.
How do you build relationships? Like Like, how do you like? What are the keys to even building? Because I think there's two parts to this, right? It's like you want to maintain relationships, and then
Right.
also build
New
professional
ones.
relationships. Do
Yeah.
you have? I mean, I'm not. We're not expecting you to go into full detail, but do you have like a trick or two for those coming up to keep in mind?
I would say listening, because I think that people want to be heard. And if you're like putting all your stuff on them of like what you want out of them, then that's not going to build a strong relationship. I think you should really listen to their needs, and that'll help really start and build a good relationship.
Awesome. That's a gem.
Yeah.
That's a gem.
I was like, I should have definitely do that. It's definitely a two-way street. You can't expect to get something without giving. It's just one of those things. You just have to continue to give something and to receive. So yeah.
Exactly.
I remember one of my college professors gave that exact same advice. So that's good.
Oh,
advice.
wow.
Yeah, he was
Okay.
like, you need to. He was telling us all, when you're going to start applying for these jobs, you should be figuring out what you can do for the company, not what the company can do for you, especially when you're early on. Yeah, yeah. So very similar.
I'm gonna
So
drink to that.
drink to that. Yes. Yes. Okay. One more question around that, and like given this recorded mentorship, if you will, but is there some advice you would give to the young ladies out there who are interested in sales, or maybe they're not interested in sales, but you've sparked their interest by joining the show? Is there advice you would give to them specifically?
I guess I would say just go into it head on. Like, be fearless, because if you're not, then they're gonna just eat you alive. And I said earlier, like, they can tell when you're uncomfortable. And if you go in there fearless and you know what you're talking about, you can dominate. Especially being a woman, I think that there's so much power behind that. You go in and, especially if you're selling to a group of men and you're a woman and you go in there with confidence, I feel like you can really dominate.
I'm glad I didn't want to say it. I'm glad you said it though, because no, seriously though, I've been in sales my whole life, and any time, like, women, you all have a certain energy about you. Guys can really, like, especially when it comes to sales. My mom was in sales, and that's where I learned a lot from, just building relationships, and yeah, that's some great advice. That's some great advice. My mom was fearless. She would sell you, ice on a winter day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, cool. This has been an awesome show so far.
I appreciate you guys having me.
Absolutely. So what do you say? Should we go into the fun part, Zakia?
Yeah, I say we go for it. Let's do it.
All right. So we have a section of this. I didn't prep you on this yet. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
So we have a portion on the show where it's called Rapid Fire. It's just a game where we're going to ask you some questions, and you just give us an answer as quickly as it comes to your head. Okay?
Okay. Oh God, I'm an overthinker, so I don't know if this is good.
You got 3 seconds each question.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to kick it off. Sales or marketing?
Marketing.
Coffee or tea?
Tea.
What song, lyric, or movie motivates you? Or podcast, whatever it may be.
Oh, a song, lyric, or a movie. Motivate. Oh, okay. This is super random. Don't laugh. Wolf of Wall Street. Have you guys ever seen it?
Of course.
Yes, I love that movie.
If you're in sales, pick up the phone and start dialing, because the money's not going to make itself.
Hey.
Interesting. So kind of on that, what show does your, let's see, company most resemble? The Office or Workaholics?
The Office.
The Office. That sounds. Which character are you?
So I don't know the characters by name, but
same. I know the show.
Yeah, I don't really know the characters by name. I've watched it a few times what I.
All right. Okay. Would you prefer to work 5 8-hour days or 4 10-hour days?
4 10-hour days.
Okay. What's been more valuable, education or experience?
Experience.
If you could give your CEO, if you were the CEO of your company, what's one policy or rule you would implement or get rid of?
I would implement that everybody needs to talk to each other openly.
Openly, okay.
Yeah.
I like that.
So you're a fan of the open concept office. You don't like the cubicles and everyone having a.
Yeah, and people like having their little cliques and stuff in, and then it comes out, and we deal with that a lot around here. And so I think everybody should talk to each other.
Absolutely. That sounds like a
Nice.
good company culture.
It
Yes.
does. Okay.
Well, thank you again for joining the show.
No, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.